Okay, so I'm joined by Ben Edel, a longtime ColdFusion community contributor, to hear his views on CF present and future.
Yep.
Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me, sir.
So, what keeps you inspired about ColdFusion after all these years?
For me, I think that ColdFusion has always been a wonderful combination of power and simplicity. So what I love about it is that when I have an idea in my head and I want to put it down on paper, so to speak, I feel like ColdFusion gets out of the way. It gives me the simplest tools that I need to get the job done and removes a lot of the friction to just sort of help me get in my headspace and help me bring my ideas to life. And I just continue to find it to be true every time I want to build something. And as the tools get more powerful, I feel like that's only becoming increasingly true. So it just always feels like it's smooth sailing for me.
Nice. So, what's one area of ColdFusion excels at that people often overlook?
I think that the asynchronous handling of logic is super easy in ColdFusion and super powerful and removes all that complexity. Like going back to the first question, removing all the complexity, right? We have our scheduled tasks for things that we want to just do in the background. We have our CF thread for things that we just want to kick off to the side that we can either set and forget, or we can join and wait for things to come back. We have our run async, which to be fair, I don't do a whole lot of, but there's so much ceremony around asynchronous code in other languages. I love the fact that ColdFusion is blocking by default. You run a query, it blocks and it waits. You go to the file system, it blocks and it waits. And I know in other ecosystems, like in Node, where the whole thing is the asynchronous I/O on the event loop.
Right.
I love it, but it adds a lot of complexity, and it's so easy to block by default and then to dip out into an asynchronous world as you need it. And I feel like people don't celebrate that enough. Every time I want to do asynchronous work, I'm just like, it's so ridiculously easy. I do a CF thread, I pass off some attributes, and I'm done. And it just works, and it's just super robust. I've never had a problem with it.
Okay, where do you see the biggest opportunity for improvements in ColdFusion?
Say that one more time.
Where do you see the biggest opportunity for improvements in ColdFusion?
I think the increase in robustness in the native functions and the semantics of the language itself, there's always room for opportunity. You know, when we got, everything was a built-in function, array find, array map, you know, struct each, and then we got our member methods, so array.find, struct.map, and that also, again, just removed more friction, kept it more in alignment with more modern languages like JavaScript with your low dashes and your underscores and your array mapping. But I think when we look at an example like Lodash, which has, I feel like hundreds of methods just for data manipulation, I think we've all written custom functions to do some of those things in our ColdFusion language. And the more that Adobe brings those efficiencies, those developer ergonomics into the language, it's going to just continue, again, to remove friction and just let the ideas flow without thinking, how do I implement this data manipulation function or this transformation function, and just let the language provide it for us.
What advice would you give to the developers just starting with ColdFusion development?
I think the best advice is always to learn by building. That have an idea in your head, no matter how silly and simple it might be, and just try to build it, because you quickly run up against the divergence between the academic way of looking at things and the practical, hands-on way of looking at things. Like, I do a lot of stuff that's actually considered old school, but it just works, and it works really well, and code can be super easy to follow. And what you find is that a lot of the academic stuff that people want to talk about, very powerful, but at the same time, with every layer of abstraction that you create complexity, you create cognitive load.
Right.
And when you build simple things and you get your hands dirty, I think it just allows you to figure out where that sweet spot is. You know, what are the quote unquote modern techniques that you want to bring in, and what are the kind of older school, more simplistic ways that just keep the development process easier. And you find a sweet spot that works for you, but you can only get there by trying stuff, by failing, by trying ideas that turn out to be really stupid, or trying stupid ideas that actually turn out to be really good, and you find that path for yourself.
And if you could add one feature to ColdFusion tomorrow, what would that be?
Well, I've talked to Charvi about this a bunch of times. So one of the, I think, most powerful features of ColdFusion is the CF query tag. I think the magic of ColdFusion for me was always the just insane simplicity with which you could take data out of the database and put it on the screen. That was the killer feature for me back in 1998 when I discovered ColdFusion, and it is almost today still the killer feature. The problem is we have, as a community, swung so far away from the idea of tag-based syntax that with that we have, so to speak, thrown the baby out with the bathwater, that we've gotten rid of the CF query tag, and it's the simplicity with which we can create dynamic query conditions, and we try to recreate it with query execute, and we try to recreate it with string concatenation. To each their own, but I think that's garbage. And what I would love, and I've asked Charvi to do this so many times, is Lucy CFML has this idea of tag islands, where you can do triple backticks around code inside of CF script, and then you can use tags within CF script. And all I want is to do my components with CF script, because I really do love the CF script syntax, but I want those CF query tags. I'm not ready to give them up. So today, when I'm building my data access layer, I still actually build my data access layer, like my very low level data access layer, in tags.
Okay.
Because I want that CF query tag.
Right.
But if they could add tag islands, I could do all of my back-end business logic and script and still have my beautiful, robust CF query tags.
Okay.
Come on, Charvi.
And how can people follow your work and connect with you after this event?
Sure. So I try to publish a lot on my website, bennadel.com, BENNADEL.com. I've sort of shrunk my social media a lot lately, but I try to post a little bit on LinkedIn, but connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on my website, and that's basically where I'm at.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, brother.